So talk about how you've been able to grow the team because of TV. So obviously seems like more deals, more leads. I'm guessing you had to add acquisitions people at some point. Tell us kind of that evolution the last few years since you started TV.
Yeah, for sure. So we hired our first acquisitions in 2021, I think, or maybe even 2020. I think it was like 2021. That's been over 4 years ago. And at that point, we were not doing TV. And so he was able to handle everything. When we turned on TV, basically we had to hire somebody else. So we hired a second acquisitions person and we tried remote. I think I was sharing this with you. We tried somebody who was remote because I'm in Las Vegas and my business is operating in Nebraska. And there was a huge difference between somebody who was running those appointments for TV and then somebody who wasn't. The person who was in person just had a way more competitive advantage. So although I'm virtual, the virtual sales process, in my opinion, for this market and lead source, it is just not touched when you're virtual versus in person because the demographic is older. They're more handshake type of people, and they tend to want to see somebody. And so the evolution was we found out that virtual didn't work. And so we hired another local representative. We still only have two closers and we have one lead manager who's in the market. One of our closers is in Mexico for the next week, celebrating an amazing quarter two. And one of my lead managers just messaged me because he's actually running 3 appointments today. And he's like, I'm going to be shaking hands until my hand is sore because we've got so many, we've got so many people who are ready to sell their house, right? And so really the evolution, the big one was the in-person. So team-wise, we found a really good sweet spot with being able to manage with two closers and two setters.
Yeah, I definitely agree that in person is better. You're in the Midwest, your market's in the Midwest, my market's in the Midwest. I think people that are in the Midwest for the most part like to shake hands and like to be in person. There are a lot of markets actually that we have clients that are doing very well with virtual appointments where they're not actually going to the house. So I think it's part of it's market specific, part of it could be just the style of the company. Like for us, I think, with the people that I have on my team, they're way better in person. They're not nearly as good on the phone. So I think it is kind of like company and market specific potentially. And so talk about your team, right? So your acquisitions people. Actually, let's talk about the process in general because that's one of the big questions we get is when I start TV, what should my process be? Should I have someone answer the phone? Should I send them a voicemail and call them back? Should I send them to an answering service? We get that a lot. I have my opinion, but I'd like to hear what you have tried and what you feel like works best from the standpoint of managing the leads that are coming in.
Yeah, so as you know, we hired a lead manager. We've always had a lead manager. We've tested out the whole remote out of the States versus the in-person. And I always think the most important thing when somebody calls into your company is that they have an amazing first impression. So regardless if our acquisition's answering the phone or if our lead manager is answering the phone, we want them to have a good experience. Super obvious, right? This is like 101. However, to your point, people send their calls. Like I would never, I would never in a million years send one of my calls to an answering service. Honestly, for me, like it doesn't make sense. These leads are so good that I want my acquisitions have the opportunity to answer it. So we've changed this, right? So the reason I've said both so far is because the first half of this year, majority was our acquisitions answering the phone. And frankly, I think we've found more success with doing that. They have that immediate rapport, but this is, I guess, a good problem to have. We ran into a bottleneck where they couldn't be running the amount of appointments that they were needing to while effectively answering the phone. So it forced us to hire a lead manager, and that's been working really well because he's in the same market. He's the guy who's actually running appointments for because our guy's out today. So he's a hybrid right now. But what I've noticed actually recently is there's a gap. Like there's a bigger gap when you have somebody setting appointments for a closer versus them setting their own appointments. And I think it's a rapport thing of like, okay, well, I spoke to so and so, but so and so is coming out to see me. I don't have as much trust as if I spoke to so and so and they're coming out to see me, if that makes sense. So we're trying to figure out how to close that gap right now. Like I'm like right now super laser focused on, okay, appointments set versus appointments attended, and why is there such a huge gap right now? If a seller calls in and they want to sell their house, our lead manager is processing it, they're setting up an appointment, but why is there a fallout? Why is there a cancellation rate on this? And why is it so big? So we're trying to close that gap right now. And once we get that gap closed, I love the model. I think that's what all of the best companies in the country who have the brand are doing, is they're running the appointment setter and the appointment closer model.
Want to get motivated sellers that nobody knows about? Introducing 10x TV. If you want to create credibility in your market, find deals that nobody else knows about, and crush your competition, you need to check into TV commercials. It is the new buzz in the real estate investing industry since we introduced it several years ago. I've been using TV commercials myself for the last 12 years and it's absolutely crushed it. So if you want to learn how to get on TV and to do something that little to no people are doing right now, go to claimmymarket.com. Again, that's claimmymarket.com. We usually only work with 2 investors per market, so if you're interested, reach out to us and book a call to see if you can claim your market before anybody else does.